Shoe. I'm in the room as a student coordinator. We have everyone in the room, well, almost everyone, who's a student coordinator. So, thank you all for coming today. We have an amazing talk lined up from Judith Uchidiuno, who is an assistant professor at Georgia Institute of Technology, Georgia Tech, School of Interactive Computing. She designs culturally informed STEM education technologies and increases access to CS education in sustainable ways for students from low-income and underserved communities. Her work prioritizes identity development, engagement, and long-term sustainability of interventions. Her research has contributed to the design of a tablet-based learning system used to supplement formal education by more than 500 students in rural Tanzania. Programmable video games co-designed for children to increase computational thinking and coding skills in the U.S., and then co-design of a statewide AI middle school curriculum in active collaboration with several schools and organizations. She's also an amazing lifter, power lifter. She's very strong, a very strong person indeed. We usually go to conferences together and work out, so I can attest to the hundreds of pounds that she can lift. So join me and welcome me, Judith. Thank you.
First of all, I didn't know that the whole bio was going to be read. If I did, I was like, man, I would have given a more bite-sized version. Well, thank you all for having me. This is great. I have been to the university several times. I love out here, so food is delicious, by the way. So today I'll be talking to you all about the lessons I've learned from co-designing games with after-school programs, and this is the work I did primarily in my postdoc over the last maybe 2 years. So I am Judith. I'm Judith, and you've read you listen to my whole bio, but the big thing is I design culturally informed interventions. I primarily supplement formal education, so most of my work is in after-school programs, and I target underserved students. Just to kind of give you a sense of like how I got here, my background, my BS is in computer science, and then this is my second career around. I used to be a project manager in my previous life, which I worked in a bank. So I have a master's in information systems, decided I wanted to come and live the life of poverty and be a PhD. And then I went to CNU, got a PhD, postdoc, and now here. So today's talk, I'm going to be telling you about the lessons learned from co-designing video games with socioeconomically and geographically diverse after-school programs. And when I talk about co-design, can everyone on the Zoom hear me? Okay. Good. Okay. So when I talk about co-design, I am talking about a form of participatory design where artifacts are co-created with input by design experts and the products end users. Does anyone here use co-design as a research? Okay. And it's especially important when researchers are not members of the same social or cultural group as intended users. For example, if you're trying to design things for use by children and you want to really good for children, the chances are you should involve children in your design because you're not a child and you cannot really child. And so so extend to adult-child co-design allows their voices to be heard with the fundamental idea that children actively construct their knowledge and their lived experiences. They're experts in and so this work is really talking about designing robotic programming games in different after-school programs. And the goal of this work was to increase computational thinking and coding skills among low-income and marginalized youth. And we did this work with 6 after-school programs, reaching over 100 students. Generally, the program was a 20-week program. The game design, some input was 6 to 8 weeks. We did some programming instruction because we have to teach them to code. Since it's a programming game. And then we tested the game and we read it. And each session was about an hour, broken down by snack time, a question of the day. You can do code design, these are like typical code design structures. Snack time, a question of the day, you did the activity, and then we did a freestyle gameplay. I'm going to be talking about 2 big lessons that we've learned. Number 1, and just iterating what all of us here already know, co-design is an invaluable method for designing transformational video games. And give me some things about this, you can reach out to me, I can send you citations. None of these are on my CV, I've been lazy to write. I have some kind of like notes here that you can cite. Second one is not all after-school programs are appropriate for traditional co-design, for different reasons, and talk about cultures of different kinds of after-school programs and how to partner with them effectively. Just to give you a background of how I got here research-wise, I started my co-design work at the University of Maryland. This is doing work, this is going back to 2012. And here we're designing with families a social media application to allow kids to connect their knowledge of science in everyday contexts with, I'm talking about that in the social media group. Also design interactive displays. So at the time, I know this slide looks a little bit dated now because technology has like flown, right, in the last 12 years. But this is what the app kind of looked like. For example, the student says, I made pizza, right? And someone probably learned just what exactly it is. Like you can have these questions that are everyday things, but they're really like the scientific inquiry of becoming questions too. Or for example, how can it be so warm for a few days and then snow? Well, you know exactly what that feels like whatever. But that was the point. And we also had interactive displays that we designed that we put in libraries and schools so that our community members could see what the kids are working on. And then I spent most of my PhD years in Tanzania designing ed tech. So I spent a lot of times in students' homes and in classrooms, looking at how like teaching was happening, how scaffolding and peer support was happening to look at how we can design tech to support learning. So we ended up there designing a peer-to-peer support system because adults were just really scarce. So this is a typical good classroom with like 100+ kids and you have one teacher trying to support everybody. So at that point, we designed an Android-based system that detected errors with student digital literacy. And digital literacy is, I've never used a tablet before. I don't know what this device is, right? And how do we help do that automatically? Or I know how to use this application that involves me swiping, but I can't use this application that involves me like double tapping, right? How do you support that? And also, of course, domain knowledge. You don't know math, right? How do I support you to learn the digital? And the system was providing appropriate feedback and then directing them to a student. So if I struggle there, it'll pop on the side, oh yeah, I can help you. When you click on it, it will find the student who stay in the same room as you and say, find this student, because through some prior data, we already know that the student has mastered using the technology and using the application and has mastered the main content. So we did that and then finishing on my PhD, supplementing some formal instruction as well. So going back, that kind of primed me to do this work, right? I already had kind of co-design experience. I already had experience doing work with like different low resource situations. And I started thinking about supplementing after school programs. This kind of giving you guys a sense of the demographic. You can see like the student number varies from 10 to 48, and I'll tell you why those numbers are different. But mostly kids in the kind of elementary, late elementary, or elementary through like middle school age. And you have people from low income, mostly Black towns to middle class rural to middle class suburban, and like very diverse. So you have trying to deploy the same kind of co-design program and seeing how they all kind of sugar out. And this kind of goes back to the question you were asking about earlier, right? Like, how do you design for these different contexts? So the first lesson is, can you tell me when is my heart stop, Olivia? Like, when do I have to start talking about questions?
35 minutes.
Okay. All right. And my general style is to have conversation while I'm talking. So
Can you define transformational video games?
I will.
Okay.
I will. That's the next slide, actually. But yeah, my general style is to kind of talk and have conversations in between. So that might push it past 35 because we're talking in between. Anyway, so co-design and development method for designing transformational video games. Transformational video games, right? They are games that are developed to change players in a specific way that transfers and persists beyond the game. So if I like 2D scrolling platformers. If I want to play Super Mario U Deluxe, game, right? Whatever I learn and play out of that game never persists outside of the game, right? I might learn like combos and moves, but it's only relevant for the game. if you want someone to play a game with benefits that's like persist outside of the game. For example, you're trying to teach them history using the game. You're trying to teach them math or programming, anything that persists outside of the game that qualifies as a transformation game, right? It doesn't lead to anything outside. And there's a bunch of examples, both in research and in practice. Transformational. All right, so they're transformational. We're also trying to design co-robotic video games, right? And it's a game where the players program a robot partner. I'm going to call that partner a cobot to play alongside them. So what is a cobot? If I want to make, let's say, I want to make this is an owl, right? I want to make this owl. I have to make this thing, right? And there are some really little parts that my hands cannot really do, but I can do this big part, right? So you can imagine I can do the base, or the robot can do the inside. So we're working in this for the same goal, or we'll have a bag of chips in front of you, right? I can make sure like the chips, they're high quality chips that are there, but the robot has to weigh it out to make sure that everything is like 5 ounces, something like that. So yeah, it's kind of like that's a co-robotic. But the best thing is a cobot has to be in the same physical space as a human, right? It can't be. It's not this where the robot is kind of in this cage, right? It's kind of like a situation like this where a robot is really working side by side. So that's a cobot. So we're making cobotic games where you program a cobot to work with you and accomplish game goals together. So our hypothesis in this whole experience that we thought games co-designed with different learning populations produce games that are interesting and culturally appropriate. What does that mean? We assume that you will come up with narratives, or maybe just like game genre preferences that just align with things that you've experienced in your culture. Do you guys have any other hypotheses of things that may have happened if you do this? What else could I have possibly seen other than like narratives and genre preferences?
Thinking about like the possibilities for what is feasible versus like the imagination and creativity is gonna vary. And sometimes
well, there's different. You're coming up with difference in gaming experiences that might impact how you design games.
Could be different learning goals.
Different learning goals. And don't forget that we expected to have similar outcomes, which was the first place that we did, right? The learning outcomes are never similar. All right, so the first game that we're designing is called Super Slime Battle. So I'll kind of give you guys the 6 games, and through each game, I'll tell you about the insights that we learned. First game is Super Slime Battle. It's supposed to be a tower defense, but it wasn't really a tower defense, so like a tower-less defense. It's like a Halloween town. We made this game like around Halloween, October, and the kids in that particular group, they're really obsessed with like dressing up and candy and stuff. So this is the theme of the game. And the cobot is a teammate of the player. And so it's an urban mixed high STEM affinity, high literacy. And so here's what the game looked like. So you would start playing, you pick your character, which the kids are like, I absolutely need to design my character in this way. You pick your cobots. You program the behavior of what you want the cobots to do. You start, the monsters start coming through, you start shooting because you're trying to protect your candy. So you're shooting with slime, right? And the cobot is there going to gather parts for you as you play. Sometimes the cobot you can program it to just go and gather stuff. Sometimes you can edit the programming to let it help you fight, right, as you get more advanced. So that's an example again. So what did we learn from this game? In this analogy, there's a little clip here that you see when the cobot goes and helps with the actual fighting. There we go. So all right. So what did we learn in this game? For this particular group of students, individuality was very important for them to maintain. Like when you look at the designs of the characters and the designs of the clothing, they're like, no. the hair of this character has to be this way. And so coming to places where we have like consensus was a little bit difficult. So we have to say, okay, 3 of you are going to get this character, design this character, look at my hair. So individuality was a thing that was really important. That was really driving the kind of input that we kind of given for the game design. And here, without even us asking, we knew that families really moderated the content that kids were consuming. Like kids wanted a shooter, but nobody wanted to shoot anything. They were like, oh, let's shoot slime, or let's shoot like balls. Like the kids were naturally censoring themselves, and that's just showing what the families were doing at home. And these kids just had a lot of experience playing different kinds of games and different fidelities. So giving them a prototype, like a Unity prototype that we hadn't really developed was fine by them. Unlike some other groups where the only experience that they had was playing games on PlayStation, right? So when you say we're designing a game together, they think we're making a thing that looks like what's happening on PlayStation. We have to make these step negotiations. But actually, there's different levels of like, there's different kinds of game abilities. All right, this next game, it's called Acceleration City. This was done with a middle class but very rural town in like Western Pennsylvania. Open world driving game, rural suburban town, and it's a multiplayer driving. The physics of this game is insane. But that's what the kids wanted. And in this case, the cobot and the player share a body. We have the exact same body. So I'll show you the game. So you and the cobot are this car. You are the car, and the cobot is like a little red thing over it that gives you some kind of insight. So you see here, you're kind of in a town, right? There's some stores, but you're collecting animals along the way, and they want to collect these animals because they want to like sell them, like gather them and use them to get points. But as you go, you see like this things that look like water slides in the air. Because the kids also wanted to fly, right? So, so we had, and you see like this very playful elements. Like you have like racetracks, and the more that you kind of like play around with this, you see things like as forms. Kids are communicating with each other because these are emojis because it's multiplayer. And well, there's some things that kids here. It was really interesting because when we say families moderating content, kids were like, I work in farms all the time. Can I just like kill animals? We're like, no, right? We won't let you do that, right? And so transforming some of these ideas into, you can see they're gathering these like box animals. They're obviously not real things, but they're kind of forming. And so that's to give them what they want. They want to run over things. But how can we do this in a way that is ethical, right? So we had different kinds of experiences like that. And the kids wanted to do things like program the car. And they knew a lot of things about fixing cars. Like, oh, we want to change this booster and this throttle. They could really use like really like sophisticated language and help us design it that way. Another really interesting thing about this game was the kids wanted a game that had no rules. And this took us a long time to figure out because when we started designing games, like, okay, what is the goal of this game? And we'll give them different games, but they're like, oh, no, we don't like that one. And it came down to this kids just have a lot of freedom at home and just rejected the fact that we would tell them how to play this game. So like, give us an open world game that supports us playing whatever game we collectively decide. That's why it had to be multiplayer. So sometimes they want to play cops and robbers. Sometimes they want to play who can gather the most things, right? And that's the game. Sometimes it's how quickly can you get to the top of this like water slide? They playing different games, and you have to have a platform, like a playground that allows them to do all these things. So multiplayer was important. They didn't care for their individual ideas. They're like, okay, we have all these things, that's fine. And we also saw some gender splits on the game ideas that we were trying to really like reconcile. For example, girls were like, no, I really want this game. I want to work in this grocery store or drive a bus. And girls were like, no, I want this. And it was harder on this group to kind of get them to have consensus. And here, just much less moderation for these kids on student exposure to violent content or adult conversations. All right, so game number 3. This game is called Zilla City. It's a third-person shooter. Futuristic urban city. This group of kids were low-income, predominantly African-American kids. And so when we talk about low resource kids, and how a lot of kids lose access to their childhood. So we had this game story, we're like, oh, you know what, yeah, you guys are going to come, this aliens are attacking your city, and you guys are going to come and save your city. They're like, no, that's what the Avengers are for, that's not my job, right? They were literal quote, right, that's the Avengers. I don't care about that problem, right? I just want to, I want you to make money, because my family needs money. I want you to, my city doesn't look very good, I want you to clean up my city, I make my city look good. It's like everyday things that when the other groups go like, no, let's do this, like things that are like children, these kids are not, right? And so they co-bought an agent of the player here. These kids too also consume like very adults type video games and go like probably just shoot everything. I'm like, no, you can't. So in this game, you're shooting balls and shooting cupcakes. So in this game, these robots animals attack their city. What they do is stun it. So this purple thing is their cobot. Once you stun the things, you can convert it to, you take it to cash, and now they can use the cash to buy different things, like glasses and watches and shoes, right? That's what they want to do. And you see, like the programming, everything looks very scratchy, right? But this game was a flop. And why? Can anyone tell us why? We matched what the kids wanted from a genre perspective on all their requirements. We what else did we do? We made sure that everything they wanted aesthetically, characters, character creation, everything were fine. Why would you think that this game was a flop?
There's nothing real. There's no money, there's no actual shoes.
Maybe. But a more fundamental problem related to being low resource. Just think about our kids who are in low income neighborhoods and all the consequences that have, all the effects that comes with them. Well, two things. Kids only had experience playing games on console, video game console, have never played PC games. So we're making a PC game. So this whole thing of like navigating with the mouse, kids have no idea how to do that. So while we're designing the game, we're doing a lot of things on computer and stuff. Right? When it came time to play the game, the kids could not play the game. That was problem number one. Problem number two, kids didn't know how to code, despite they tried, but like kids just had no experience coding in the past. That was their first program anything. So that was hard to teach. And we were unintentionally gatekeeping the fun by that because the kids needed to code to make money. You code the robot, and the robot helps you go and make money. So for a child who can't code, don't forget my other groups, those kids have coded in different places before. So those kids were very easily like playing this game, they love this game. But it's because I can't make money, the thing I really want to do in this game because I can't code. And that was a bummer. And number four, limited internet. That really restricted the kind of game. Like our game when we build them, wouldn't really load because they didn't even have the internet to do. So we really had to scale back on the design and do that. All right, so this was a flop, and because of that, we made Zilla Beats, which is a lot lighter. It's a rhythm shooter, same futuristic urban city. Think about it as a player's vehicle. In this case, it's the hoverboard. It's the player's hoverboard. And you can see another thing that we saw was, so this is a clubhouse. Another thing that, okay, so yeah, we made a completely different coding UI that didn't depend on any words, because kids also had reading way level. And you realize that when we're teaching coding, we expect that kids already know how to read, because you cannot code if you cannot read, right? And we really have to ask ourselves, do we want to teach coding and reading, or do we really want to focus on coding and computational thinking? And the latter was the answer. So we took out the words, right? Of course, this doesn't scale because as your code gets bigger, and it takes up a lot of physical space, right? So there's those things you have to negotiate. But for this purpose, this worked out. We designed a visual only coding interface, and that worked out. All right, so many lessons about how Black children in this game wanted to be represented in video games. And there's a interactions magazine they're about to submit about like just things like oh my hair. And everything from this is like a simple Google image of like Black kids in hair, right? Everything from like braids to locks to different like And kids are like, no, this is who I am. I want to be represented like this in video games. Also things about representation. Kids wanted to make themselves. Kids wanted to make role models, including celebrities and me, right? In the room. Kids wanted to make fantasy characters or fantasy representations of themselves. For some reason, they were always green, like a mud, always green. I'm not sure why. But the older girls wanted to make their crushes. And the older girls had a very good understanding of complex representations of blackness. Sometimes being black is the absence of melanin, right? Some people are real light skinned, or some people have family members who like have albinism, where they were just like they didn't look dark at all, but they wanted to represent them in video games. And how do we make tools to support all these different ways to black? We didn't find any evidence of kids trying to fit into any Eurocentric standards or specific like archetypes. Yeah. And the importance of sneakers, especially Jordans. I didn't grow up in the US, at least when I was a child, so I missed the whole Jordans are great. I know Jordans are fantastic. All right. But I missed it. Well, like kids are like all the shoe options, like no, those that look like Jordans, and talking about why that particular shoe is a sign of just them arriving, but also from both an athletic perspective and from a success perspective. And then this last game, it's called Friends Forever. This is a group of the horror game. These kids they didn't have a lot of gaming experience, but they know horror films that like mostly low income middle school black girls. But they were like, no, I want the room to be bloody. I'm like, no, we can't. Like, you know, there's a theme here. There's a lot of things that we have to say, no, this is too much as adults. But it's like a puzzle solving exploration coding game. And the code is a guide to the player. So I'll show you guys this clip first, and I'll go back and show you the clip. So this is how the game starts.
Please let me out.
It is the creepiest game. Anyway, so that's your cobot, right? And that's your cobot, and
The key is in there. She always puts the things you need far away.
anyway, so your cobot can get into really small spaces and help you kind of figure out things. So by the time you have the cobot, so go back. By the time you have the cobot, let's see. So you get her out. So here she is walking. I'll show you how the programming goes. So she goes in there. Then with the mirror, you can see what she's right? And then she's trying to get something. So now you code the way that she can physically move in space to go and get. So that's how you can make a programming thing of a horror game. All right. And then you do things throughout the game. There's like puzzles, and all the puzzles are very creepy, right? But there's puzzles that you have to solve to open this door. So it's kind of like an escape room kind of thing. It's super fun game. Anyway, so what did we learn from this one? Even without gaming experience, students can draw from other types of media, movies, music, right? To engage and help produce very wonderful video games. And kids just feel like it should feel like this. Sometimes they couldn't tell you in words, but they would say, look at this video, listen to this song. I want the game to feel this. And as adults, we're designers, so we could kind of translate that into this very creepy game. And students can recognize character genre mismatches. So if you look at the way that doll was designed, they wanted a doll that, like you said, if you look at her skin, there's a lot of gray behind her skin, the doll, and I don't know any black person that actually looks like that, right? It's like the kids like, no, I want this actual gray, so that way she looks like slightly dead, right? I want there to be grays, but like one or two grays to be missing. Like they were like very specific. And then we had the other character, and they were like, no, we don't like, she looks like she's like an everyday girl. You know, she doesn't look like she belongs in this game. So kids are very like, for this kind of game, this feel, this character should not be there, and this kid didn't have a lot of gaming experience in the past. And if all these games are publicly available, here's a link. Please play them. Yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick clarifying question. You showed on one of the videos that they were able to program the cobot in the game. Is that the case throughout all of the games?
Yes.
That they program throughout the game, or is it just at the beginning?
So in some cases, you program, they all work differently. So in some games, before you start the stage, you program the game. The game, like Friends Forever, you only program a specific task. So you just navigate in the house, and when you get to like a puzzle, you program it to kind of fix the puzzle. So that's another way. Another game like Zilla City, you could always walk back to the clubhouse, like kind of like a computer lab, and there you can go and code. So they all kind of felt different. There's programming in some ways. Sometimes it was before, sometimes it was during. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Do you think that if you were to take one of the games that was designed by a certain demographic and then give it to a group of kids also match that demographic,
Yeah.
that they would have a similar reaction to that game?
It's hard to say match the demographic. I mean, they might look the same, they might be similar gender or race, but they have very, very different cultural experiences. And sometimes they might be like, this game's a whack. And kids will tell you very quickly. But sometimes you have people that a lot of these things, like this outer spacey things, like the kids like, why are we playing this? And then when they're giving you feedback on the game, like one time a kid was like, I just want our game. Like all the feedback that we get, I don't like the character, I can't change the character. Like, why am I doing all these things for nothing? At least for them, we're working for money, right? So sometimes you see why kids to validate why they have these design opinions. But for a lot of like middle class urban, you will find similarity that they will enjoy some of it. But if you go to like the outskirts, you see kids that just don't understand why these things. Sure, you had a question.
Yeah, I wanted to learn a bit more about the co-design process. Is it like you have these game prototypes and the kids would play them and
Really good question. So we'll go and say we're going to make a game that is about cobots. First of all, day one, what kind of game do you think we should make? They'll give you 10,000 ideas. Also, with every session, we watch them play games. You can tell the kinds of games that we played. We started curating like websites with like lots of game links. Also watch the way they play and the things that we enjoy. That was part of input. And then from there, we start to converge on ideas, and then we start to give them game stories. So we will write like 3 slides. Game number 1, this is the game. They were like, no, we hate that game scratches. So you start to iterate on game stories until they like, we like this story. From there, you do a very, very, very rough prototype with the same like mechanics and see them if they actually like. Sometimes that's where you fail. You go back to the drawing board. So it's a very iterative process until they like the story, they like the mechanics, and then we start developing prototypes.
And a follow-up to that, you mentioned that sometimes the kids say something and like the instructors may say, oh, that is too much. I wonder like how to decide whether something reflects a real need and how to decide when to say no to things like that.
Well, so sometimes we're not going to, for different reasons. Like if anything was violence anyway, we're not going to design a game that hurts people, hurts animals. We're not. And so we didn't want to, we wanted to honor the things that they were saying that they wanted to see. So that's why you kind of see kind of representations like, okay, you want to run up my animals, tell me why, right? And depending on what's like, oh no, we just want to have enough meat in our freezer, right? It's like, okay, so if I give you cubes that look like cows, and if it disappears, then 2 more units of meat appear in your freezer with that. Like, so there's all these negotiations that we have to do. Like, how do we give them the outcome that we want without the transgressive elements that they're asking? And just with like gun violence, we weren't going to ask anybody to shoot anyone. That's just not a thing that was going to happen. Yeah.
Let me know if you're gonna get to this.
Yeah.
The one question I have is about that transformative aspect, like what were you trying to transfer outside of the game?
Yeah.
It seems like maybe coding is one
Mm-hmm.
that is fairly obvious, but were there specific aspects of that you were trying to teach?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think in one of the examples where you're talking about prioritize, looked at how these skills transfer, one of them like emotional intelligence, so were you also trying to teach any, non-coding skills?
Yeah, so the three big things we had was coding skills, that's the most obvious one, but also it's increasing their identity as game designers. Like, you actually game, and at the end of the day, they all get certificates saying, thank you for contributing as a game designer as a current developer. Like they all have certificates that they're very proud of. But it's also through this iterative process, can we make you better, just more feel like you can be a game designer, and also increasing just STEM identity affiliation. Many of these kids again have never seen a programmer or anybody like that. So at the end of the day, do you think, and there's a chart that I show at the end that kind of shows where those numbers kind of change. All right, second one is not all after school programs are appropriate for co-design. Tell me when I absolutely have to stop talking, can you? All right, very cool. Co-design with after school programs, you guys know after school programs happen after school, cater to students' varying interests in sports, arts, games, etc. And many providers are interested in expanding or introducing STEM offerings. So what factors do you think we should consider, we as researchers, what factors do you think we should consider when we're trying to partner with an after school program? So imagine you're starting a research study, you're thinking about after school program, what factors do you think are important to consider before you decide who to partner with?
The teachers need to be supported.
Okay, the staff there, they need to be supported, yes. What else?
Parents need to give them consent.
Parents need to consent, yeah. Anything else?
The activities continue at all when you're not there.
Okay, they continue to support themselves. There's things like demographics, for example, I want to work with low income, right? So you pick people with low income settings. Anything else? Well, we found out the hard way that the culture of the program themselves matter. Believe it or not, after school program themselves have cultures. And how did we find this out? On our live session interactions over 2 years, interviewed 10 administrators before and after our co-design program. And we found that even within the same after school network, by network, I mean, think of YMCA, right? 12. So even within the same network, we saw slight differences in organizational culture and resources that impacted the effectiveness of our co-design program, the outputs and the expectations between them. And so we're characterizing our different partners into archetypes just to kind of help you start thinking about program culture and thinking about for the people that you worked with, what kind of archetype might you fit in. So the first one, I'll call them safe havens, and their goal is to provide a safe and nurturing environment for low-income neighborhoods, for students from low-income neighborhoods. So here's a quote that I like. This has always been the problem with these types of hoods, is the ability to see things, be resources, or whatever it may be. My kids just don't see it, sushi, things like that. But people think that's just regular, that's not regular out here. So for me, the idea is exposure. This is the administrator. I remember going to a tennis camp when I was 10. I didn't care about that tennis camp, not one bit. Now that I'm 31, I can see somebody playing tennis on TV and I can appreciate that. I don't think the exposure was so much about being Serena's little homie. It wasn't about that. It was about me experiencing it. And then talking about everyone's going to go to camp. I don't care if they complain for 2 hours, the experience is going to be right. They're going to get to my age, they're going to have kids, I'm going to be like, yeah, we went on a walking trail. I did that one time, I hated it. This is important because in this after school program, their goal entirely is exposure. You know how we go when they're like, oh, we want this 10 kids to have this very enriching camp experience. Like, no. I want all my kids, all 60 of them to see a little bit of what you said, that's good enough. So think about when I'm designing a core design program for 10 kids. Which 10 kids? They're gonna give you 50 kids, right? And so how do you think about equity in this kind of place? Administrators are parental figures. Here, this is one of the groups, so you have lower reading and arithmetic skills. Equity consideration must consider every single student in the building. And how this impact our co-design process. We had lots of students. We needed many more staff. We also had very serious time constraints. We only had 1 hour in the day we said, can we come for 2 hours? It was half now, half later. No, they have to do homework and they have to eat because otherwise they might not have other time to eat. Okay, can we come today for this hour and tomorrow for the next hour? They're like, no, because if I see a kid today, I might never see them again. And so for the day I have them, I have to expose them. So also very limited experience with maker materials, right? So you need to have some high fidelity materials because I think some things are challenging. Things like pet cleaners on pom-poms that if you have maker skills, you know these things are really important to make. If you don't have that experience, it just looks like what kids do. And how do you negotiate that? Tech resources, the kids didn't have laptops, so we had to carry laptops every time we wanted for them to prepare. And researchers we had to be parent figures, and do you want to do that when you go to research? This is the products, we talked about this is how we had to design a completely different product for them. Any questions about this particular archetype? So this is one archetype, right, where you have to design it. Another archetype is called a recreation center. These places are serving as play and rec spaces for use. And students are only encouraged to go to programs that they find interested on a day-to-day basis. Can anyone think of any problems with that?
The students might not like be interested to this kind of.
Right, so I don't think I have time to read this quote, but the after school program kind of looks like this, right? There's lots of games, different kinds of games, there's sports, there's all those fun things. And then when you want to do a co-design program and local programming, they think of that as school. So the kids are like, I'm not going, right? And the kids get to choose where they go daily. So how do you think this will affect the co-design process and program? If kids get to choose where they want to go every day.
Limited engagement.
Well, first of all, engagement is my currency. I have to over-engage for them to even come to me. Right? That's number one. What else?
Only the most motivated students.
Yeah, but it's hard to motivate kids to pick you over basketball and gymnastics and video. It's hard. That is hard for a child, right? All right, total consistent attendance. We have a total of 48 students in that group. And each session had an average of 5 sitting and 3 PE students. In that game, we're playing video games more than our other groups, just trying to keep them going. You cannot pre-post them on any measure. You just won't, right? Any pre-post measures you have, forget it. Because the students are not coming long enough to, right, consistently enough. And the structured portions of the program, like teacher programming, will have like 2 kids. Like, you want me to program or can I play basketball? I will play basketball, right? And we really had to prioritize free gameplay as an active part of our program to increase participation. In this place, we have to kind of be our friends and our partners, whether they're our parents, figures. And so the results, we didn't really have any consensus on the co-design game, whether on the design elements. We tried to give them each student one thing on the game so that they didn't really feel ownership. Unsurprisingly, because if they only attended a 20 session, an average of 3, you didn't design enough. And that's what we have to finish. And so how do you partner effectively with this kind of group, right? They are fantastic for play testing things. If you want a new set of eyes every time on games that you're designing, this kind of group, they're fantastic for that. But just traditional design is probably a good fit for this architecture. And then there's homework helpers, supplementing school instruction and providing homework supports. That's the kind of after school program that gives it feel very much like school and it's designed intentionally that way. So this is a quote, where homework help, that's the main one. The parents come to the after school center for homework help. They like that we have structure here and we do the academic things. It's the ability because parents don't understand the math. We do it with them and they think it's quality too. So when they get home, they're not having to worry about rushing home to getting homework done. They can spend time with their kids. Here, the administrators are pre-selecting the children because remember, the administrator is like a teacher, a secondary, like a after-school teacher. And then the administrator is pre-selecting kids and they think, this child, you're really good for programming and STEM. This child, not so much. This child, you're really, what problems do you see with that strategy? Yeah.
You're probably not gonna get
diversity
if you want.
Yeah, there's an example. The administrators are, because they have this power, they're like teacher representatives. They're pre-selecting students who attended our program. What problems do you see with that?
It's people already showing proficiencies and not students who might have the creativity and, you know, perhaps have computational thinking skills, but aren't able to, you know, show those on tests.
Just to give you an example, one day we came and the kids that they had pre-selected, the 7 of them, like only for some reason, well, something happened, a lot of them had COVID, right? So we only got 2 kids physically there. So I went out to the hallway. I'm like, you know, guys, we've been doing a co-design program, and you know, like, or a game design. Who wants to participate? And 8 kids came to me like, we have been wanting to come to this program, but we couldn't come. And those kids came into the door, excellent programmers, designers, but they never made it through the administrative pass. So anyway, you have places like that. There's a lot of them, right? And you have a lot of homogeneous participants, people who fit into stereotypically you are a gamer, stereotypically you are a programmer. So from a game design perspective, we didn't have that much diversity in kids. And unique to the rule town of work, we had a lot of voice effects where this kid really thinks this is what we should do, and this kid kind of has enough social power that he really has to. And you kind of in that space have to be a teacher too. And that might not be the role, and that might not even be the most effective role for you to be as a co-designer. But here, overall agreement on the design product. On the surface, it looked like, oh, we designed a thing, it works. But you have to kind of step back and say, well, if you really want to make a good game, you might have to like push past the administrator, which is also a different thing. All right, and then the very last one, call them STEM enrichment centers, and maybe I have volunteered in some of these kinds of places before. Maybe some of you guys have. Anyone an undergraduate? Okay. Grad students. All right. Any of you guys go to a lot of after-school programs growing up? No. Or what about like robotics programs? Programming things? All right. So if you ended up here, right? Chances are, right, you might have gone to after-school programs that were like specifically targeted to programming. Those places, I would imagine, are very much like STEM enrichment centers. You already knew, your parents already knew that you liked programming. So they're putting you in this place so you get more knowledge with this specific thing, right? So a lot of these kids in our club, they seem like they come from a stable home, one of them does work, so they're a little bit more focused on school. They're pretty into STEM. You can't get them to play in the gym. You don't want to do that. You want to their computers like me, and I had a kid talking to me about things. This is the sports director. I have no idea what they're talking about. So I just want to be able to move on to the program. I feel like they already bought into it. I think this is the location for the STEM director, and she's doing programs. So she's frustrated because she needs sports people. While the other place they have too many sports. Anyway, so students are enrolling specifically to attend STEM programs and as a STEM champion. So how do you think this will affect co-design? If you have these kinds of students who are really kind of, they're already like high gamers, maybe have designed a game, or even more code. How do you think this will affect co-design? Or even the outcomes, period.
Have small effects on outcomes.
Very, very small effects on outcomes. Yeah, what else?
They probably want more control over the game
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
Opinionated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were some diverse participants because they're diverse and they opt in. Unlike the administrator selected them, they're opt in on their family. So there's some diversity there. Very high interest in game design and programming. This works very well with traditional co-design because like they're used to structure and they want to push the game design elements. But very small opportunities for learning and identity transformation because these kids are already kind of there. Overall, we had agreement. So why of all these archetypes, which safe havens seem like the toughest places to be, right? So sometimes you might ask yourself, why? Why do I even go here? I mean, other than the fact that it's just a good physical thing to do, right? Why should I do it? So here is this blue bar. When we first got there, this is kind of like what their career affiliations were. So like art director was how we see things like cleaning staff engineer, but look at how programming moved, right? From when we first got there to when we got out of there. But the point is there's a lot of opportunity for transformation in this kinds of groups. And sometimes you might go with a plan to do this co-design, and sometimes like, you know what, maybe this plan can't really work this way, so how can we best work? And usually the outcomes are really good. All right, so today, my talk was all about designing co-designing video games with diverse after-school programs. Now I'm faculty at Tech. I'm doing a whole bunch of things related to this, sometimes directly and indirectly. So first thing is I'm scaling computer science education interventions specifically in after-school programs. I have a program called CS Ambassadors where I am training members of communities who have worked in after-school programs for a long time. I'm training them to I'll teach you computer science, take it and teach you in the community. I'll pay them for their time, both for training and for teaching. And think about this from a sustainability perspective. I have people who, one of my teachers has volunteered in an after-school program for 11 years. He works in a packaging company who has volunteered there for free. One other student is an English teacher, has volunteered in the place for 4 years. Another lady has volunteered, she's a nurse, but has been volunteering in the place since high school. And you have people like this who are deeply invested in communities. We'll do this work for free. Have them like, okay, actually, I can, if you can be a nurse and an English teacher, I can teach you to teach elementary school computer science, and I'll pay you for your time. And so that's what we're doing in the scaling that way. Another thing that I'm doing is working to supplement formal education in computer science. I'm working with teachers. I have a project called AI for GA, where we are designing the middle school curriculum for AI for the state of Georgia. And so yeah, that is going on, working with teachers directly. I'm doing a similar thing with the state of North Carolina with a project called AI Play. Also, we are designing AI games with similar outcomes. Also doing some international work. Currently designing K-12 CS curriculums, because once people want the CS in the US, looks very different across the world. So working from the ground up, working with administrators saying, what are the CS outcomes that you want for your students, both in the elementary and secondary school level, and what can you sustain? I don't want to show up with tech, leave it and go and do it, right? What can you sustain? It might be, oh, I want things that can work in a computer lab. I want something that can work on mobile, and design it that way. And finally, I've been thinking about ways to use role-playing games to connect students' interests in the arts and athletics to CS careers, because I actually don't think that. I don't know if any of you will use computer science skills in other domains that you enjoy, but I don't think that arts and sports and CS are mutually exclusive. Right? I think they exist. So can we help students? This is a picture I took on my after school programs where they have people who come there and show kids, teach kids how to braid hair, right? Teach kids how to play sports. And these are things that are great. But I also have in this same community is a hairdresser who invented a blow dryer. Because the ones that she was trying to use was not working. And there are ways that people who are in these domains and connect these interests together, can we help kids experience that by living through other people's lives and real fun games? Again, it's worth it, right? Because we can have some really transformative outcomes like this. Yeah, and just continuing to supplement formal instruction using like intelligent technologies. Many ways to reach me. It's my email, my website. That's my Instagram, that's Twitter. I'm fairly active on all those things, so reach out to me, please.
Any more questions here?
In person or on Zoom?
Yeah, I asked something.
I said I knew I was going to talk fast every 5 because I was hoping we could have a conversation in the middle. So yeah.
How much, so on the first part of this, when you're talking about the cobots, one question that I had was how much did you decide, or how did you decide how much the kids could modify with cobot? Just how much flexibility did they have?
I think that we wanted the kids to have very strong buy-in with the game and feel a sense of leadership. And many times it's kind of annoying. It's like if they like, oh, you know what, let's play that game. You have to like by the time it starts to feel like this is our game, this is the game we made. Like, check out our game, and the way not just the way they're talking about it within the group, but also they're going out to the administrators and say, come see this game that we made, look at the part I made. And by the time you start to sense that the kids feel a sense of ownership of the game, they're making that one, like, okay, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes for some kids, it took a lot longer. Like the program was officially 12 weeks, but there were kids that, I mean, think about Zilla City, all the failure we had, making Zilla games. It probably took 2 years before we got to the game, we're part ready and we're happy with it. And sometimes, like, we thought Zilla City was a flop, where we were like, oh yeah, this game's a flop, and then we put it on, I think some of these games on Hour of Code or and Zilla City probably had like 60,000 hits from other kids. So it's like, you might think a game is a flop for a specific demographic, but other kids would like it. So yeah, so I guess to answer the question directly, we stopped when we felt like the kids had enough sense of ownership. We continued to take input from them until we felt like they felt like this is theirs. Of course, in the rec center, we changed it up. Because anyway, yeah. Hope that answers your question.
I remember when I was a kid and I was engaging with educational media, I would hate when like it would come out and be like, oh, like pick the right answer, because I didn't want to be tricked into learning, you know, I just wanted to like store up or something. So I guess in the co-design process, did you see the kids like struggling, like, oh, do we have to program, like, can't we just play in the city?
Yeah. So we saw some things like that, which is why the gatekeeping that we're doing with Zilla City, where they had to program to make money, that was unkind in retrospect. We wanted to design games that they could play, even if they didn't want to program. And most of the games work that way. You can do some gameplay. And we're like, okay, if you want to really be good at this game and do some really fancy things, then here's some programming that you can do. But again, there's better ways to do it than worse ways. I feel like the fundamental premise of the game, if making money is the most important thing to the kids, do not put that behind the programming paywall. And some kids will want to push themselves into a code, and other kids will not want to push themselves, and that we have to be okay with that outcome too. That we don't have to. You had a question?
So how can we anticipate the difficulty of the cohort programming for kids in different ages? Because I saw the age for the kids in the after school is among like 5 to 12. And I think again, and the programming for kids for 5 or kids for 12 will be different.
Sometimes not so much. Because if you have a kid who's 12 who has never programmed before, then the way to teach that kid programming is similar to the way to teach a 5-year-old. The difference is, though, most of the materials that they make for kids who are 5 and learning to code look like games for people that are 5. Yeah. And kids who are 12 don't want to do things that look like kids. So, like, how do I teach you the same kind of knowledge components, but I have to reinvent the way I'm teaching it so that way it looks like I'm teaching a thing that we're grown kids? That's a bigger challenge. But I think that we saw kids, regardless age, was not really telling us much about how much their programming experience was because we're going to different communities. Challenge was figuring out what's the right way to teach this fundamental kind of CS knowledge to kids at different ages. Because sometimes some kids might enjoy Frozen and Angry Birds, like they have a game, or other kids are like, I really want. I'm not going to do this.
We have one last question from Zoom. Do you do anything special to premiere the final game? Do the co-designers get recognized in front of the kids who didn't participate?
Yes. So on the final game, when we've all agreed, we have a pizza party and invite everybody in the after school program. We also have them walk around with their certificates and show people, and it's a really nice certificate, so they get to be proud of that. We also have, because we did most of it with the same after school network, we had different sessions after where we say, oh, so this is a showcase day and we'll showcase a specific game. And so kids will join from Zoom from all over. And they're like, oh yeah, so when people ask, well, I don't get it this way, you see kids defend their game, like, oh, we made it this way because X, Y, Z. And so we have multiple things where we'll celebrate in the clubhouse themselves. We will do events outside with the other clubhouses in the network to kind of showcase what people made. And then most of these games are like online on our website. I told them how to make it to like code or it's our code to get some public attention. And all the games have credits for the specific, give credits to the specific kids in the group that is in this one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody on Zoom.
Thank you.